What if Thor didn't land in a world that feared gods, but in a world where being powerful was a crime? The sky was purple. The air was silent. Bodies hung from metal towers, not criminals, not warriors, heroes. Their only sin? They were stronger than the rest. Thor stepped forward, Mjolnir in hand, and the world froze. This planet had seen conquerors, tyrants, monsters from the stars, but never a god who walked without fear. Before Thor could speak, alarm screamed. Chains charged with alien energy wrapped around his arms. The crowd didn't cheer. They prayed, because on this planet, power meant execution, and Thor Odinson was the most dangerous thing that had ever arrived. Thor learned the truth the hard way. The moment he stepped deeper into the city, he felt it. Not fear aimed at him, but fear because of him. Eyes followed his every move. Doors carved from solid stone slammed shut. Mothers pulled children behind walls etched with ancient warnings. This world did not welcome saviors. It hunted them. The city itself looked old even by Asgardian standards. No metal towers. No glowing machines. Just endless stone. Houses chiseled from cliffs. Roads carved into the ground. Monuments shaped by hands that had feared the sky for centuries. Every surface carried scars, as if the planet remembered something terrible and refused to let it return. Thor noticed the symbols first, repeated everywhere. Figures with raised arms struck down by spears. Lightning split in half by chains. Crowns crushed beneath stone boots. These were not decorations. They were lessons. He followed the crowd toward the central square. There, stone pillars rose like grave markers. From each one, a body hung suspended by thick rope and carved restraints. Their clothing was different. Some wore armor, others wore robes. One still clutched a broken staff in his hand. These were not criminals. Thor had seen criminals die. This was something else entirely. These were warnings. A low chant echoed across the square. Not prayers, not cheers. A reminder spoken by thousands in unison. Thor could not understand the language, but he understood the meaning perfectly. Power is forbidden. Power brings ruin. His grip tightened around Mjolnir. A sudden cry cut through the air. An alien child was dragged forward by two guards. The boy could not have been more than 10. Fear poured from him in waves, but so did something else. Energy. Tiny sparks snapped around his fingers, uncontrolled and desperate. The crowd stepped back instantly, as if the air itself had turned poisonous. Thor moved without thinking. Enough, he said, his voice calm but carrying weight. Every guard froze. They turned slowly, eyes wide, not in awe, but in horror. The boy's captors released him and backed away, as if Thor carried a disease. The child collapsed to the stone floor, crying, clutching his hands to his chest like they were a curse. A voice boomed from above. Another one. Thor looked up. A balcony carved directly into the stone overlooked the square. Elder figures stood there, wrapped in heavy cloaks, their faces carved with the same hardness as the city itself. You arrive, glowing with strength. The voice continued, and you think yourself different. Thor raised his hammer slightly. Not threatening, not defensive. A statement. I seek no throne, he said. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. The elders did not react. We have heard that lie, one of them said. From gods, from champions, from kings who swore they would never rule. The crowd murmured, not disagreement, recognition. Thor felt it then. The history beneath their words. Not theory, experience. You see corpses, the elder continued. We see survival. Every being you call a hero once claimed mercy. Everyone eventually demanded obedience. Thor glanced back at the hanging figures. And the child, he asked quietly. The elder's voice hardened. Today he sparks without control. Tomorrow he commands. The day after, he conquers. The guards moved again. Thor stepped between them and the boy. Thunder rumbled softly above, barely noticeable, like the planet itself holding its breath. I will not allow this, Thor said. That was when the ground shifted. Stone plates beneath his feet slid apart. Thick restraints erupted upward, carved with runes that burned a dull green. They wrapped around his arms, his legs, his chest. Not metal, not technology. Ancient stone bound with something far older than Asgard itself. Mjolnir flew from his hand. The hammer struck the ground inches away. The crowd gasped. Thor strained against the bonds. The restraints held firm. The elders watched, unmoved. "We learned," one said. "We do not fight power. We erase it." The chains tightened. Thor dropped to one knee. For the first time since arriving, the people stepped closer. Not to help, not to celebrate, to confirm something vital. Even gods could be broken. Thor looked at the child, still shaking on the ground. He smiled gently, and above them, unseen by the city that had forbidden the sky, the clouds began to listen. They did not kill him immediately. That was the first mistake. Thor was dragged through the stone city in broad daylight, bound by restraints that scraped sparks from the ground with every step. The people followed in silence. No cheers, no hatred, only relief, the kind that comes when a storm appears to be contained. To them, this was not a god being humiliated. It was a disaster being delayed. The arena waited at the heart of the city, a massive circular structure carved entirely from bedrock, its walls etched with histories of fallen champions. Thor could feel it. The place had been built not to celebrate strength, but to end it. The air was heavy, not with magic, but with belief. Belief that nothing powerful should survive. They forced him to his knees at the center. The elders appeared again, seated above, their faces calm, almost sorrowful. "You feel it fading," one said. "Your lightning, your pride." Thor tested the chains. The thunder within him answered weakly, like a distant echo trapped behind walls of stone. "These restraints were carved from the bones of our world," the elder continued. "They drink power, not just yours. All power." Thor lifted his head. "Then you fear more than tyranny," he said. "You fear hope itself." A ripple moved through the crowd. A dangerous emotion in this place. Hope. The elders raised a hand, and the murmur died instantly. "Our world burned once," another elder spoke. "Long before you arrived. Before these cities were stone. Before we learned the cost of trust." Images were revealed along the arena walls as light struck the carvings. Figures rising into the sky. Storms tearing continents apart. Beings crowned in flame and light, hailed as saviors. And then domination. "We welcome them," the elders said. "We praise their gifts. We handed them authority. And in time, they decided we were too fragile to choose for ourselves." Thor followed the story carved in stone. "They did not call themselves tyrants," the elder continued. "They called themselves protectors, just as you do now." Thor clenched his jaw, but said nothing. "So we adapted," the elder said. "We removed the disease instead of treating symptoms forever." A gate opened on the far side of the arena. Another prisoner was brought forward. A woman this time, tall, shoulders straight despite the chains. Her eyes met Thor's without fear. Power shimmered faintly around her skin. Controlled, disciplined, restrained by will alone. The crowd tensed. "She once lifted an entire city from collapse," the elder announced. "Saved thousands from certain death." Thor felt something twist inside his chest. "And what did she demand in return?" he asked. The elder's reply was immediate. "Nothing." At first, the woman was forced to her knees beside him. Thor whispered, "What happened to you?" "They waited," she said quietly, "for me to fail. For one mistake, one moment of anger." The execution was efficient. Stone mechanisms rose from the ground, locking her in place. Energy flared once, then vanished, absorbed by the arena itself. When the dust settled, the woman lay motionless. No scream, no spectacle, just absence. The crowd exhaled as one. Thor's rage surged through him and died just as quickly. The chains drank it in. "You see," the elder said, "even restraint is not enough. Power always grows, always tempts, always corrupts eventually." Thor stared at the lifeless body. And who decides when someone becomes a threat? He asked. We do, the elders replied in unison. The answer chilled him more than the chains ever could. Days passed, or perhaps hours. Time blurred in the arena. Thor was kept bound, displayed, studied. Scholars carved symbols around him. Guards measured his reactions. Children were brought to see him, not in wonder, but in mourning. This, they were told, is what power costs. Thor spoke when he could, not speeches, stories of Asgard, of Midgard, of mistakes he had made, of wars fought because gods failed to listen to those they claimed to protect. Most ignored him, but not all. A guard lingered longer than the others. An older male, scars across his hands, the marks of someone who had once held something dangerous and lost it. Did you ever become what they feared? The guard asked one night. Thor did not lie. Yes, he said, once. I became exactly what they warned me against. The guard nodded slowly. And did they stop you? He asked. No, Thor replied. Someone reminded me who I was supposed to be. Someone believed when I had forgotten. The guard said nothing after that. But the next day, the chains loosened. Just slightly. Not enough to escape. Enough to breathe. Thor felt it instantly. Change. It was small, fragile, dangerous as any storm. The elders sensed it too. That night, thunder rolled clearly across the sky. Not summoned, not commanded, answered. The arena trembled. For the first time in generations, the city remembered something it had tried to erase completely. Power did not always come to rule. Sometimes it came to stand. The city woke to a sound it had not heard in generations. Thunder. Not violent, not raging, just distant, steady, patient. It rolled across the stone rooftops and echoed through the carved streets like a forgotten language returning to the tongue of the world. People stepped outside their homes, shielding their eyes from the bright sky, confused rather than afraid. In the arena, the elders stood in silence. The chains around Thor vibrated softly, hairline cracks forming along the carved runes. Not breaking, responding. This is why he must end, one elder said, his voice tighter than before. Today, now. They ordered a demonstration. Another prisoner was brought forward. A young man this time, barely older than the child Thor had protected in the square. His power was subtle, almost invisible. He could see paths others could not. Probability, outcome, choice. The kind of ability that terrified rulers more than brute force ever could. Thor felt it immediately. Do not do this, he said. The young man met his eyes and smiled sadly. They already decided long ago. The mechanism activated. But something went wrong. The stone restraints hesitated. The arena pulsed once, like a heart skipping a beat. A crack spread across the execution platform, thin as a hair, glowing faintly with light that was not green, not alien, but white, pure. The elders shouted commands. Guards scrambled. The crowd recoiled. The young man was pulled back just in time as the platform collapsed into dust. Silence followed. Not relief, fear. This world is destabilizing, an elder barked. Because of him. Because we waited too long. Thor rose slowly, the chains grinding, but no longer forcing him down. No, Thor said. Because of you. For the first time, the crowd heard defiance without domination. You killed power, Thor continued, voice carrying through the arena, but you never killed fear. You just taught it to hide. You taught it to hate itself. The guards raised their weapons. The older guard, the one who had spoken to Thor, did not move. Others noticed. The elders noticed too. You would betray your world, one demanded. The guard answered quietly. No, I would save it from what we have become. He stepped forward and struck the base of Thor's restraints with a stone tool. The runes flared bright, then shattered completely. Mjolnir flew into Thor's hand like it had never left. The thunder answered fully this time. Not lightning, not destruction, presence. The crowd dropped to their knees instinctively, not in worship, but in awe of something undeniable, something they had been taught could not exist. Thor did not attack, That confused them more than violence ever could. He walked to the broken execution platform and helped the young man to his feet. "Go," Thor said. The young man hesitated. "They will hunt me forever." "They will not," Thor replied, eyes on the elders. Because Thor was already walking toward them. "You built this system to protect yourselves," Thor said, stepping beneath the stone balcony. "But protection without trust becomes a prison. Safety without freedom becomes tyranny." One elder sneered, "And trust in gods becomes extinction." Thor looked up at them. "I am not asking you to trust me," he said. "I am asking you to stop deciding who deserves to exist." The sky cracked open. A single bolt of lightning struck the arena floor. Not killing, not burning, carving a massive symbol into the stone. A hammer, split in half. "Power is not the enemy," Thor said. "The fear of it is." The elders retreated, not because they were weak, because for the first time they were unsure. The crowd murmured again, louder now, not chanting, questioning. "What happens now?" someone shouted. Thor turned to them. "Now," he said, "you choose. No orders, no threats, just responsibility." The elders realized too late what he had done. He had returned something far more dangerous than power: choice. And once a people remember they can choose, no chains in the world can hold them again. Choice spread faster than lightning, not as rebellion, not as chaos, as hesitation, as questions whispered behind stone walls and carried through sunlit streets. The elders felt it slipping from their grasp, the control they had forged over centuries, now cracking under the weight of a single truth they could no longer bury. Thor did not lead an uprising. That terrified them more than if he had. He walked the city instead, unarmed, hammer resting at his side, not raised. People watched from doorways carved into stone, unsure whether to hide or approach. Some spat at his feet, others bowed their heads. Most simply stared, trying to reconcile the god before them with the monster they had been taught to fear. Thor stopped where the pillars stood. The bodies were gone. Only the ropes remained, swaying gently in the warm daylight. He touched one of the carved posts, feeling the grooves left by countless executions. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He did not need to. The silence was louder than thunder. The elders called for order. Decrees echoed through the city, carved into stone slabs and displayed in every square. All gifted beings were to report immediately. All who aided them would share their fate. The god would be contained, but the words felt hollow now, because people had seen something impossible. A god who could destroy them choose not to. Thor reached the outer districts by midday. This was where the city hid what it could not erase. Broken homes, abandoned families, survivors who had once shown signs of power. He felt it instantly. Power suppressed so deeply it barely breathed. A woman stepped forward. Her hands trembled. "My daughter," she said. "She moves stone when she dreams." Thor knelt, bringing himself level with her. "You have kept her safe all this time." "By teaching her to hate herself," the woman whispered. Thor looked past her. The girl stood in the doorway, eyes wide, hands clenched tight as if holding back the world itself. Thor held out his hand. "Power is not a command," he said gently. "It is a responsibility, and no one should carry it alone." The ground beneath them shifted, just a little. The girl gasped and stepped back, then laughed. The sound cut through the street like sunlight through clouds. Others heard it. A man who could heal stepped forward. Then another who could sense storms before they formed. Then someone who could bend light just enough to hide. They did not rise up. They gathered. The elders watched from the highest tower, fury tightening their faces. "This is infection," one snarled. "No," another replied quietly. "This is memory returning." They activated the final measure. Stone guardians emerged from beneath the city. Massive constructs carved long ago, animated not by technology, but by belief and ritual. They had ended gods before. The ground shook as they marched. People screamed. Thor stepped forward alone. "No," he said firmly, raising a hand. "Not to summon lightning, but to stop the crowd. This is not your fight. Not yet. The guardians closed in. Thor planted Mjolnir against the stone and spoke words older than Asgard, older than the city itself, older than fear. The hammer did not strike. It answered. The guardians halted. Cracks spread across their bodies, not from force, but from conflict. They had been built to destroy domination, and standing before them was power without command, strength without demand. They collapsed into lifeless stone. The city stood frozen. The elders' authority shattered in that moment, not by defeat, but by irrelevance. People turned away from the towers, toward each other. That night, under a clear sky, fires burned across the city, not of destruction, but gathering. Stories were told. Names were spoken aloud for the first time in generations. The dead were mourned honestly. Thor stood at the edge of the city, watching. The older guard approached. "They will not forget this," he said. Thor nodded. "They should not." "What will you do?" the guard asked. Thor looked up at the sky, where thunder rolled softly. "Peaceful now. I will leave," he said, "and hope they learn what I once had to." The guard hesitated. "And if they fail?" Thor turned back toward the city of stone, alive with voices instead of silence. "Then they will face the consequences," he said, "together. Because gods can shatter worlds, but only people can rebuild them." The city did not collapse when Thor left. That surprised everyone. The elders expected chaos. The fearful expected blood. The gifted expected revenge. None of it came. The stone streets remained. The houses stood. The sky stayed clear. And for the first time in generations, the city woke without an execution to mark the morning. But peace was not silence. Arguments erupted in the open. Voices clashed in the plazas where bodies once hung. People disagreed loudly, passionately, imperfectly. And that, more than anything, proved the elders wrong. The world did not end because power was no longer hunted. It struggled because choice had returned. The first council formed not in a tower, but in the arena. The execution platform remained broken, left exactly as it was. A reminder. Those who had once been guards sat beside those who had once been hunted. The gifted did not hide their abilities, but they did not flaunt them either. Every use of power was questioned. Every decision was shared. It was slow, painfully slow, and it worked. The child Thor had protected was the first to speak. He stood on the stone floor, hands trembling, sparks dancing faintly between his fingers. The crowd leaned forward, breath held. "I am afraid," he said honestly, "of myself." No one laughed. A woman stepped forward, the mother who had hidden her daughter, then the healer, then the young man who could see paths. "We are afraid too," they said. Fear, spoken aloud, lost its teeth. Far beyond the city, Thor watched from a ridge of stone. He did not interfere. He did not guide. He had done his part. What came next belonged to them. Mjolnir rested at his side, humming softly, content. A presence approached. The elders. Not all of them. Only 3 remained. They walked without cloaks, without guards, without authority carved into stone. "You destroyed everything we built," one said. Thor did not turn. "No," he replied calmly. "I showed them what you destroyed." Another elder clenched his jaw. "We kept them alive." Thor finally faced them. "You kept them obedient," he said. "Those are not the same thing." Silence stretched between them. "Was our world wrong?" the eldest asked, his voice no longer hard, only tired. Thor considered the question carefully. "No," he said. "It was wounded, and wounds that never heal begin to rot from within." The elders had no answer. They left without ceremony. Weeks passed. The city changed. Slowly, deliberately, imperfectly. The pillars were pulled down. The stone repurposed into homes, schools, gathering places. The arena became a forum where arguments replaced executions. Power was trained, not erased. Those who abused it were stopped, not killed. Judged by many instead of few. Mistakes were made. They were faced. Stories replaced warnings. Children learned history, not fear. One night, as thunder rolled gently across the sky, the girl who moved stone dreamed again. This time, she did not hide. She shaped a small sculpture beside her bed. A hammer split in two, a symbol, not of gods, of responsibility. Thor felt it then, a subtle shift in the fabric of the world. Not worship, not summoning, gratitude. He smiled. Far away, in the stone city that once hanged heroes, a new law was carved into the central square. No being shall be judged by their power alone. No fear shall decide another's fate. Strength exists to serve, not to rule. Thor rose, lifting Mjolnir. The sky answered, bright and clear. And as he vanished into the light, the world behind him stood. Not perfect, not safe, but finally free. Because the most dangerous power was never lightning. It was the courage to choose differently.